Clax is an arcade puzzler released by Atari Games in 1990 and ported to many home consoles, including the TurboGrafx. The game features a conveyor belt mid-screen with colored blocks flopping down it. You control a paddle that moves left and right across 5 positions. This paddle catches these blocks, or tiles as the manual calls them, and eventually drops them into the bin below. You can hold up to 5 tiles at once, and the highest one in the stack will be the first dropped. There is also a wild tile, which is flashing, and it can be substituted for any of the others. So what is a Klax exactly? Well, Klax is the term used for 3 or more tiles together of the same color, vertically, horizontally, or diagonally. If you know other puzzle-type games, this will sound pretty familiar, and how the tiles are arranged in the bin can affect points and outcome. For example, 4 tiles together equal 2 Klaxes. Or arranging them in a specific order can cause chain reactions. This is where the wild tile comes in handy, as you can destroy a ton of colors all together and get a bunch of points. The manual does a pretty good job showing off the various patterns if you care to study them. The game has 100 waves, each with a specific goal, such as completing a predetermined amount of diagonals, or achieving a certain amount of points. The bottom of the screen keeps track of your progress. Now, if you do not catch a tile, it will drop to its death. And yes, it screams as it falls. Listen to that, how horrifying. You have a limited number of drops indicated by the drop lights at the bottom. This can be used as part of your strategy, along with the pre-calculation of where the tiles will shift after destroying a group. While your paddle can only hold 5 tiles at a time, pressing up will flip them toward the top, so you can juggle them around. The tiles eventually move faster, but holding down will temporarily speed up that conveyor belt. If you drop too many tiles, or stack them all the way to the top, it's game over. You are allotted only 3 credits in order to continue at the wave you left off. Check this out. When you run out of credits, it still says in arcade-like fashion, add coins to continue. Where? I'm trying. Aside from a bit more pixelated and skinnier, graphically the TurboGrafx port is pretty faithful to the arcade original. This can be good or bad, because much like the arcade version, it's kind of boring. There is a nice angled play field creating a unique perspective and excellent colors, no doubt. But the borders and backgrounds are quite simple, and while they do change and color swap, they aren't all that striking. The sound is very limited, with only strange plops and clops. Each tile has a different sound effect, and some are kind of weird. If we're talking arcade comparison, it has replicated the sound well, although the voices are a little bit scratchier. Oh, and check out the music. Yep, there ain't any. There is not much to control really, but what there is I found pretty responsive. You shift the paddle and alter the conveyor belt and tiles using the control pad and drop the tiles into the bin with button 1. It's all pretty smooth, although the paddle moves a tad slow even when the game speeds up. Now, I played the arcade version as a kid, dropping in a quarter here and there, and I kind of liked it. But my problem with Clax, even back then, is that the gameplay is fun for only brief doses. On top of that, this game makes me feel very depth perception challenged. I cannot always tell where a tile is going to land in relation to the rest, and no port of this game will ever change this. When I get to about wave 12, I am required to pull off a zillion diagonals, and man, do I have trouble. I guess I'm also diagonal deficient. I generally get about a fourth of the way through the game and either lose my continues or simply lose interest. Now, that's not to say the TurboGrafx port is awful. On the contrary, if you're a fan, you really cannot go wrong here. Aside from a few downgrades and lack of multiplayer, it replicates the arcade version well. Plus, you got a bunch of little goodies like finding warps or adjusting the numerous options available on the options screen. It's not a top favorite game of mine, but I can definitely recommend Clax for those who enjoy it. No matter what, just remember, it is the 90s, and there is time for Clax. Well, so says the game, of course. Some love Clax and consider it a classic, and others hate it. Me personally, I can appreciate the game, and it is the only Tengen release on the TurboGrafx. But in the end, it never totally clicked with me, partially due to my deficiencies. I wonder if they have a pill for diagonal deficiencies.